A cold night, a lonely rancher, and a little girl knocking in the storm. Her words shattered the silence. They beaten my mama, she's dying. That moment changed everything: love, danger, and redemption on the wild Texas plains. The wind howled across the lonely plains, carrying the scent of dust and rain. Ethan Cole, a man built like the land itself, broad, silent, unbreakable, was mending a fence near his barn as the storm rolled closer. The evening sky glowed orange and gray, and the sound of distant thunder echoed off the mountains. He was used to silence, to the steady rhythm of work and the creak of the old gate, but tonight, something felt different. Then came the knock. It was soft at first, barely audible against the wind. He frowned, wiping his hands on his jeans, and listened again. Knock, knock. Hesitant, frightened, he set down his tools and strode to the porch, boots thudding against the wooden planks. When he opened the door, his heart nearly stopped. A little girl stood there, soaked to the bone, her hair plastered to her face, her dress torn and muddy. Her big blue eyes looked up at him, filled with tears and terror. She couldn't have been more than 7. She hugged a small, ragged doll to her chest like it was her only friend in the world. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling. They beaten my mama. She's dying." For a moment, Ethan didn't move. The words cut through the wind like a knife. He looked down at her tiny frame, shivering, desperate, and something inside him cracked. Without a word, he bent down, wrapping his coat around her shoulders. "Where is she, sweetheart?" he asked gently, his deep voice soft as the storm raged behind him. The girl sniffled and pointed down the dirt road. "In the woods, in a cabin." Ethan didn't waste another second. He scooped her up into his strong arms, set her on his horse, and climbed behind her. "Hold on tight," he said, and with a sharp kick, the horse lunged forward into the darkness. The rain poured harder, lightning flashed across the horizon, and Ethan's jaw tightened. He didn't know who this little girl was or what kind of evil had hurt her mother, but he knew one thing for certain. He wouldn't let them face it alone. That night, as the wind screamed through the prairie, the giant rancher rode straight into danger, unaware that the frightened child beside him was about to lead him straight to the woman who would change his life forever. The storm raged harder as Ethan rode through the open fields, the little girl clinging to his coat, her small hands trembling. Rain lashed against his face, but he kept his eyes forward, following the faint path she pointed toward. Lightning lit up the sky, revealing the outline of an old, broken-down cabin deep in the trees. The place looked abandoned, windows shattered, the door half hanging from its hinges. Ethan jumped down, lifted the girl off the horse, and pushed open the door with his shoulder. The smell of damp wood and blood hit him instantly. Inside, the room was dark except for the faint glow of a dying fire. And there, on the floor near the hearth, lay a woman. Her hair was matted with sweat, her face bruised and pale as snow. Her clothes were torn, her breath shallow. She looked like she'd been through hell. The girl ran to her and fell beside her, sobbing. "Mama, wake up. Please, Mama, wake up." Ethan knelt beside them, checking her pulse with careful hands. It was weak, too weak. His jaw clenched. He'd seen pain before, seen people hurt from ranch accidents or bar fights, but this was different. This was cruelty. Someone had meant to break her. "She's still breathing," he said softly, brushing the girl's hair from her face. "But we have to get her help now." He found a tattered blanket on the chair and wrapped it around the woman, then lifted her into his arms as if she weighed nothing. Her head rested against his chest, and for a brief moment, her eyes fluttered open. She looked at him, confused, afraid, and whispered something he couldn't quite hear before slipping back into unconsciousness. "Hold on, ma'am," Ethan murmured, his voice low and steady. "You ain't dying on my watch." He mounted his horse again, holding her securely against him while the little girl rode behind, clutching his waist. The rain turned the dirt road to mud, but he didn't slow down. His only thought was getting them home, to safety, to warmth. By the time they reached the ranch, dawn was breaking, soft gold spilling over the hills. Ethan carried the woman inside, laid her gently on his bed, and told the girl, "Stay close. She's safe now." When the morning light touched her bruised face, Ethan saw her clearly for the first time. Even battered and broken, she was beautiful, strong features softened by exhaustion, lashes trembling as she breathed. He stood there for a long moment, staring at her, feeling something stir deep in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years. It wasn't pity. It was something far more dangerous. And as the storm outside faded into silence, Ethan Cole knew that his life, once simple and solitary, had just changed forever.
Days turned into weeks, and slowly, the ranch began to change. The house that had once felt cold and quiet started to breathe again, filled with laughter, the smell of fresh bread, and the rhythm of life returning. Clara's hands brought warmth to every corner. The curtains were washed and mended, the floors gleamed, and the girls began to smile again. Ethan often found himself watching her when she wasn't looking, how she braided Rose's hair, or how she knelt beside Maggie in the garden, teaching her to care for flowers the way she cared for everything else, with patience and heart. It had been a long time since laughter echoed through these walls. Clara had done that, without even meaning to. Still, peace on the plains never lasted long. Whispers from town began to drift up the dirt road like cold smoke. A woman like Clara didn't just disappear quietly from the gossip of small minds. Folks remembered the scandal, the man who'd ruined her name, the rumors that she'd been with him for money. Lies had a way of traveling faster than truth ever could. One afternoon, Ethan rode into town for supplies. He didn't plan on stopping to talk, but the storekeeper's wife, Mrs. Tully, made sure her words found him before he left. "You got that woman up there, don't you?" she asked, her voice sharp, her eyes narrow. "The one who used to work at the saloon. You best be careful, Mr. Cole. Men who take in her kind don't keep good reputations long." Ethan's jaw tightened. He said nothing, just paid for his supplies and left. But as he rode back through the open country, the wind cold against his face, anger burned in his chest. They didn't know her. They didn't see how Rose clung to Clara's skirt when she was scared, or how Maggie giggled when Clara sang them lullabies at night. They didn't see how his home, his heart, had begun to heal. When he reached the ranch, Clara was outside hanging laundry, her sleeves rolled up, her hair blowing softly in the breeze. She looked peaceful, almost radiant against the backdrop of the setting sun. But when she saw Ethan's face, her hands stilled. "They've been talking again, haven't they?" she asked quietly. Ethan dismounted and dropped the reins. "It doesn't matter what they say." "Yes, it does." Her voice trembled, the calm in her eyes breaking. "They'll never let me forget what happened. I told you before, I'm not the kind of woman you should have around your girls." He took a step toward her, his boots crunching in the dirt. "Clara, you've done more good here than anyone in that town ever could." She shook her head, the pain in her heart spilling out in her voice. "You don't understand. You don't know everything I've done." Ethan paused, watching her carefully. The sun had dipped lower, the light turning soft and golden. He reached out, gently lifting her chin until her tear-filled eyes met his. "Maybe not," he said quietly, "but I know who you are now." She blinked, her lips trembling. "And who am I, Ethan?" He smiled faintly, that rough, tired smile of a man who'd carried grief too long. "You're the woman who saved this place. The one who made my girls laugh again. The one who made me remember what home feels like." Her heart ached at his words, torn between gratitude and guilt. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe she could belong here, but the ghosts of her past whispered louder every night. "You're kind, Ethan," she said softly. "Too kind. But kindness doesn't erase the past." He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him, smell the faint scent of leather and pine. "No," he said, his voice low and certain. "But it sure as hell can build a future." Tears slipped down her cheeks, and before she could turn away, he reached out and brushed one from her skin with his thumb. The simple touch sent a shiver through her, one that felt both terrifying and safe. "Don't let them break you again," he whispered. "You've already been through enough." For a long moment, they just stood there, two broken souls, caught in the golden light of the setting sun. The wind swept through the valley, carrying with it the scent of rain and the promise of change. Clara wanted to speak, to thank him, to tell him that his words had touched a place in her heart she thought was long dead, but all she could manage was a trembling breath. Ethan gave her hand a gentle squeeze before turning to walk toward the barn, leaving her there beneath the fading sky. As he disappeared into the distance, Clara pressed her hand to her chest, feeling her heart beat strong and fast. For years, shame had been her only companion. But now, for the first time, she felt something stronger rising within her. Hope that maybe, just maybe, she could be worthy of love again. The evening sky had turned a bruised purple, heavy clouds rolling in from the west. The air felt thick, humming with the electricity of an approaching storm. Clara was finishing up chores in the barn, the girls already tucked safely inside, when she noticed the horses growing restless. Their ears flicked, their hooves stamped nervously. She knew that sound. Thunder wasn't far off. Ethan was out near the pasture, fixing the fence line before the weather broke. Clara grabbed her shawl and hurried through the tall grass, calling his name over the wind. Ethan, you should come in. It's not safe out here. He looked up from where he was tightening a wire, rain already spitting against his hat brim. Just a few more nails, he shouted back. Don't want the cattle getting loose if the storm hits hard. Lightning cracked in the distance, the sound rumbling through the valley. The wind picked up, fierce and cold, whipping Clara's hair across her face. She started toward him again, her boots sinking into the mud. Please, Ethan, she cried, it can wait till morning. He looked at her then, and something in her tone must have reached him. He dropped his tools, grabbing the coil of wire and slinging it over his shoulder. All right, he called, moving toward her, but before he reached her, a sharp gust tore through the fields, ripping part of the old barn roof loose. The roar of thunder drowned out everything. Clara gasped as she saw the heavy wooden beam above the door shift and crack. Ethan, she screamed, pointing. He turned just as the beam gave way. Without thinking, he lunged toward her, shoving her out of the way. The world exploded in noise, wood splintering, wind howling, rain crashing down. Clara hit the ground hard, the breath knocked from her chest. When she opened her eyes, Ethan was lying beside her, half covered by the fallen beam. No, she cried, crawling to him. Ethan, no, 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 she pressed her trembling hands to his chest, relief flooding through her when she felt the faint, steady rhythm of his heartbeat. He gritted his teeth, trying to push the beam off. Just a scratch, he muttered, his voice tight with pain. Don't move, she pleaded, tears blurring her vision. The rain poured down harder now, soaking them both to the bone. With all the strength she had left, Clara braced her shoulder under the beam and pushed. It wouldn't budge, her arms shook, her knees sinking deeper into the mud. God, please, she whispered desperately, don't take him too. Something primal burst inside her, fear, love, determination all at once. With a cry, she shoved again, her whole body trembling. The beam rolled just enough for Ethan to pull free. He coughed, wincing, then tried to sit up. Guess I should have listened to you, he rasped. Clara let out a strangled laugh through her tears. You're a fool, Ethan Cole. Maybe, he said weakly, his hand finding hers. His skin was cold, his grip unsteady. But I'd rather be a fool than see you hurt. She looked down at him, her heart pounding. You could have died, she whispered. His eyes met hers, calm even through the pain. Could have, but if I did, I'd die knowing I saved the only good thing that's come to this ranch in a long time. The thunder rolled again, softer now as the storm began to pass. Clara brushed the wet hair from his forehead, tears mixing with the rain. Don't you say that, she murmured. You can't leave me, not now. He smiled faintly, his voice low but sure. Then you'll have to stick around. Make sure I don't. She laughed through her tears, shaking her head. You shouldn't be talking. Maybe, he whispered, gripping her hand tighter. But there's something I've been meaning to ask, before I run out of luck. She frowned, brushing the mud from his cheek. Ethan, please, save your strength. He cut her off with a slow breath. Clara, I need a mother for my girls. And you need shelter. But it's more than that now. His eyes softened, his words trembling with honesty. You've given life back to this place. To me. So I'm asking, will you stay? Will you be my wife? For a heartbeat, the world was silent except for the soft patter of rain. Clara's lips parted, her heart twisting painfully. Ethan, she whispered, you don't know what you're asking. You deserve someone better, someone clean. He reached up, his thumb brushing the side of her face. Darling, I don't need perfect. I just need you. The words broke something inside her. All the walls she'd built to protect herself crumbled in that one moment. She bowed her head, pressing her forehead against his. Yes, she breathed, her voice shaking. Yes, Ethan, I'll stay. He smiled then. Tired, relieved, but real. The kind of smile she hadn't seen on him before. Good, he whispered. Knew you would. The rain began to ease, turning into a soft drizzle. She helped him to his feet, his arm heavy over her shoulder as they walked back toward the farmhouse. The windows glowed warm against the gray sky, and inside, the faint sound of the girl's laughter floated through the door. As they stepped inside, dripping wet and breathless, Clara looked at Ethan, at the man who had risked his life to save her, and felt something bloom deep in her heart. For the first time, she didn't feel like a burden. She felt like she'd come home.
The chill of early morning swept across the open plains, carrying the scent of dust and gun oil. The sun hadn't yet risen when Ethan sensed something was wrong. The horses were restless, pawing the dirt, and the dogs barked low and steady, a warning sound. He stepped onto the porch, his hand already resting on the shotgun propped by the door. From the distance, the crunch of wheels on gravel echoed through the dawn. A wagon approached, flanked by 3 men on horseback. Ethan's jaw tightened. He didn't need to ask who they were. The men who had beaten Clara had finally come looking for her. Inside the house, Clara stirred from sleep, her heart racing when she heard the low voices outside. She rushed to Emma's room, pulled her daughter close, and whispered, "Stay here, sweetheart. No matter what happens, don't come out." The girl nodded, clutching her mother's hand, eyes wide with fear. Ethan stepped off the porch as the wagon came to a halt. The leader, a wiry man with a cruel grin and a scar down his cheek, spat into the dirt. "Morning, cowboy. We're looking for a woman and a brat that don't belong to you." Ethan didn't blink. "You'll find no one here," he said evenly. The man laughed, swinging down from his horse. "Don't play dumb. She belongs to us. She stole from my boss, and we aim to take her back." Ethan's voice dropped low, steady as thunder before the storm. "She don't belong to anyone. And you're not taking her anywhere." The man sneered. "You planning to stop us?" Ethan raised the shotgun just slightly, enough to make his point clear. "You're standing on my land. That means you play by my rules." For a moment, the world went silent except for the creak of leather and the shifting of hooves. Then one of the men reached for his gun. The shot cracked through the morning air. One warning blast, close enough to splinter the fence post beside the man's hand. The horses reared, and the men froze. Ethan didn't flinch. His eyes were cold steel. "Next one won't miss," he said. The leader hesitated, eyes darting to the house. He saw the determination in Ethan's stance, the kind of man who would rather die than break his word. After a tense moment, he spat again, signaling to his men. "This ain't over," he growled. "You'll regret crossing us." Ethan didn't answer. He stood still as they turned their horses and rode off into the rising light. Only when the dust settled did he lower his weapon. Clara stepped onto the porch, trembling. "Are they gone?" He turned to her, his gaze softening. "Yeah, they won't be back." Her knees gave out, and she sank onto the steps, covering her face. "You could have been killed," she whispered. Ethan crouched beside her, gently taking her hands away from her face. "You and Emma are worth fighting for," he said simply. "Always will be." Tears welled in her eyes. She reached out and touched his cheek, her fingers trembling. "No one's ever fought for me before." He smiled faintly. "Guess it's about time someone did." As the sun rose behind them, golden light spilled over the ranch. Emma ran out, calling for her mama, and Clara pulled her daughter into her arms. Ethan watched them, his heart swelling with something he hadn't felt in years, peace. Clara turned to him, her eyes shining through the tears. "We'd like to stay," she said softly. "If you'll have us." Ethan's voice was rough when he answered. "You're already home." The 3 of them stood there in the morning light, the giant rancher, the woman he'd saved, and the little girl who'd knocked on his door that fateful night. The storm had passed, and in its place, love had quietly taken root in the wide, open heart of Texas.